A village in the mountains has been constantly attacked by an S-rank Fenrir, so they spent all their savings hiring an SS rank party to defeat it. The Flaming Dragon Fang party is filled with some of the strongest adventurers, each with their unique skills, except for Kurt. Kurt's main talent: doing chores. He's hiding behind a wall to avoid getting hurt when the Fenrir arrives and attacks him first. After being sent flying, the rest of the party gears up for battle. Guv orders Bandana to restrain the beast, and she ties it up, but the Fenrir breaks her back against a wall. But with Marfus around, she's healed in seconds and back on her feet. Using a tree as an anchor, she gives Guv a chance to aim for the Fenrir's head, and he sets it ablaze with his magic sword. The villagers are so thrilled that they prepare a feast, even though they're nearly broke. But Guv, he hates the peasant food and demands CT cook something better for him. Bandana asks for something special, since it's Kurt's last day cooking for them. Kurt, clueless, asks Guv why he's being fired. Guv explains that Kurt is useless in combat and they can only have 4 members, so they need someone stronger, like a mage. Kurt begs to stay, but Guv kicks him in the stomach and says that's final. The next day, Kurt leaves the village with no money and no direction. He ends up in the city of Sa, desperate and barely holding on to his last pennies. He finds a temp agency and gets an interview. His work history? He was part of the Flaming Dragon Fang but only did chores. Still, the party's name looks good on his resume. Kurt's aptitude test reveals that his combat skills are all rated G rank, meaning he's basically useless in a fight. But Kel, the receptionist, suggests he might have a hidden talent, like alchemy or blacksmithing, though the person who evaluates those skills is on vacation. Kurt needs work now, so Kel suggests he try lifting a sandbag. When he does, she sees he has the strength for construction work, and she helps him get a job at the city wall repair site. The Margrave is skeptical about Kurt, but he gives him a chance. Kurt gets to work mixing cement, and by the time the Margrave returns, Kurt has already finished a huge section of the wall. The Margrave is shocked but impressed. He tells Kurt he's done enough for the day and gives him a pouch of money. Kurt can't believe it, it's more than he ever made with the hero party. Over the next few days, Kurt works hard. But just when he thinks things are going great, the Margrave fires him, saying he's done enough. So much for his new job. Kurt asks why, and the Margrave explains that the wall repairs were meant to provide jobs for those in poverty. However, Kurt is too efficient, and if he keeps working, there will be no work left for anyone else. The Margrave isn't upset with Kurt, but based on his abilities, which seem to be at least double his rank, he would be better suited for work in the royal capital. He gives Kurt a lump sum as compensation for being let go and walks away. Kurt, misunderstanding the situation, thinks the Margrave fired him because he was a terrible worker. He heads back to the temp agency to tell Kel about being fired and that it will still take a few days before his trade attributes are appraised. Just then, they hear a commotion at the front desk, where a girl is trying to post a recruitment ad. The receptionist tells her no one would agree to work under the terrible conditions she's offering. Despite this, the girl insists, causing a disturbance. Kel steps in to investigate and learns that the girl wants to hire a miner to excavate an unexplored mountain but refuses to offer upfront payment, only promising payment if the excavation succeeds. Kel explains that no one would agree to these terms and suggests the girl find investors, but she can't because she has to pay taxes by the end of the week or risk losing the mine. Kurt overhears and, seeing an opportunity, volunteers, explaining that he has experience from helping with mining back in his village. Kel asks if he's sure about accepting, considering the risk of not getting paid. But before he can answer, the girl dismisses him, saying she initially hoped to hire a dwarf. However, since she can't afford the upfront payment for one, she reluctantly agrees to hire Kurt. As Kurt and the girl head out, Kel feels bad for him, thinking the job isn't worth his time. Her coworker interrupts to tell her that a bank transfer has arrived the remaining payment the Margrave promised for Kurt's work. Expecting around 50 silver, Kel is stunned when she sees it's actually 200 gold. She's so shocked by the amount that she trips over some sandbags, which her coworker explains are used to measure mana reserves. They usually don't react with regular people, but Kurt had struggled with them a few days ago, which makes Kel wonder if he's really just an ordinary kid. Meanwhile, Kurt and the girl, Alicia, head to her campsite. Kurt is surprised to see only one tent, and Alicia suggests they share it. Kurt, embarrassed, says he couldn't sleep next to her. Alicia gets upset, thinking Kurt is just flattering her, but when Kurt insists he genuinely thinks she's cute, she realizes he's sincere. She gives him a boiled potato for dinner, and Kurt, grateful since it's been a long time since anyone cooked for him, appreciates both the meal and her company. The next morning, Alicia wakes up to find Kurt sleeping under a tree. She feels bad about making him sleep outside, but then she notices that her jacket has been repaired. Kurt admits he fixed it, impressing her with his sewing skills. She wonders if he'll be good at mining, but it's too late to find someone else, so they get to work. Kurt asks Alicia if she has a plan for where to mine, but she was planning to dig randomly. Kurt tells her she'll never find anything that way and takes her to a section of the mountain, where he quickly locates a rock full of gemstones. Alicia is amazed that he found them so easily. In no time, Kurt identifies every gemstone in the area. She realizes that selling them could pay off her debt, but Kurt tells her she can't sell them as they are. Instead, he turns them into magic crystals, despite Alicia's concern that only a few mages in the kingdom can do so. Kurt, however, does it instantly, leaving her speechless. Once Kurt finishes, he allows Alicia to sell the crystals. She heads to the city's customs agency, where the agent questions her about where she got them. To avoid further questions, she flashes her royal family emblem, bluffing since she no longer works for them. The agent lets her pass, and she travels to the capital. There, she visits an old friend, Mimiko, who's shocked at the quality of the crystals, realizing they contain 10 times the usual amount of mana. Mimiko offers Alicia 500 gold for them. Before she leaves, Mimiko asks Alicia to promise not to sell such powerful crystals anywhere else and to give her the name of the creator. Alicia refuses to share Kurt's name without his permission. Mimiko, a court mage, insists but ultimately can't get Alicia to comply. She asks Alicia to make sure Kurt doesn't go to another nation and offers him a title of count and access to the Royal Research Lab if he agrees to work for the royal family. Alicia returns to the mountain, only to find that Kurt has built an entire house in the time she was gone. Setting her shock aside, Alicia tells Kurt that a friend of hers wants to hire him as a royal mage. If he takes the job, he'll basically become nobility fancy title, big paycheck, sweet benefits. Kurt's not buying it. He thinks it's too good to be true, but Alicia assures him it's a legit offer. When she asks what he wants to do, Kurt says he's gonna pass. Alicia is stunned. Who turns down being a royal mage? And honestly, same, because his reason is dumb. He says he doesn't want to be in a position above others and still wants to go crawling back to the Flaming Dragon Guild, even if he has to beg them to take him back as their errand boy. Speaking of Flaming Dragon, they're currently getting absolutely wrecked by a tree monster. Gulliver's fire magic isn't working, so he asks Marlipist for healing. She's been trying, but her magic's on the fritz too. He turns to the new guy for backup, but guess what? He doesn't know fire magic either. That was supposed to be Gulliver's job. The team is a hot mess without Kurt around, and only Bandon seems to notice the whole squad is falling apart. Back with Kurt, he's still mining gems for Alicia. He tells her he found a good vein yesterday, and he's eager to dig more. She appreciates the enthusiasm but worries he might be overworking himself. He reassures her that he got a solid 6 hours of sleep. That blows Alicia's mind. She starts doing the math on how he managed to build a whole house and still sleep. But Kurt thinks she's mad about him sleeping too much and apologizes for being lazy. Alicia really needs to sit this man down and explain just how ridiculous his strength is, but she has no idea where to start. They head out to do more mining. Kurt leads her to a forest spot and says she should find good gems here, just don't dig past 500 meters, as if someone could accidentally do that. He then heads off to another site, promising to check in later. Ulicia spends the whole day digging and eventually finds a massive topaz gem. She'd been giving Kurt all the profits before since he found most of the gems, but this one's hers so she can finally pay her taxes. She could ask Kurt to turn it into a magic gem and make even more money, but she doesn't want to take advantage of his kindness. Curious how Kurt's doing, she checks on him and sure enough, he's gone way overboard again. He built an entire tunnel system in just 8 hours. When he pops out, he says he only found a little of the gem he was looking for. Everything else, just worthless rocks he plans to toss. Ulicia peeks into the cart and sees rocks that are way too shiny to be junk. She asks what they are, and Kurt casually says, "Oh, just mithril." Turns out, in his village, mithril was so common they used to throw it away. Ulicia is speechless. She then asks what gem he was looking for if mithril is considered trash. Kurt pulls out a small rock and says he was hunting for orichalcum. You know, the metal of the gods, worth millions per gram? Yeah, he found a box of it. Ulicia didn't even know you could find orichalcum around here. Kurt just shrugs and says, "You can mine it anywhere, you just have to dig 8 kilometers. At that point, Ulicia calls it a day. Her topaz covers her taxes, so her contract with Kurt is over. But poor Kurt still thinks he needs a new job. No one's told him about the mountain of gold in his bank account. On his way to the job agency, he runs into Bandana. He's happy to see her and asks why she's around. She tells him she's no longer with Flaming Dragon. Turns out, after that tree monster disaster, Golova went to a 5-star restaurant to cheer himself up, but every bite reminded him that compared to Kurt's cooking, everything else tastes like reheated cardboard. Golova loses his temper big time, wrecks the restaurant, and storms off without paying. In a sketchy alley, Bandana catches up with him and is like, "Dude, you went way too far." But Golova's too busy rage craving good food to care. He tells Bandana to go drag Kurt back even if she has to break his bones. Yeah, Golova's spiraling. Bandana decides not to argue with Crazy Town. Instead, she snatches his teleportation crystal and runs off. Just as she leaves, she sees the city guards heading toward Golova. Without that crystal, he's toast. Bandana finds Kurt and breaks the news well, some of it about the group disbanding. Kurt's pretty bummed because he was hoping to rejoin, still clueless about how much of a jerk Golova really was. Bandana, who never actually cared about Golova in the first place, she was just spying on Kurt, can't believe Kurt still wants to go back. Since Kurt's clearly job hunting, Bandana has an idea. A friend of hers, an elite Italier master, a big deal, like Viscount level big, needs help in her workshop. Kurt says he's in, so Bandana hands him a map and sends him on his merry way. Kurt finds the place, but it looks more like a normal house. He knocks, and a tiny elf girl named Michelle answers. Turns out she's not the master, just the assistant. She's thrilled to have help, though, and drags him into a kitchen that smells like a sea monster's armpit. She apologizes things have been hectic and runs off, leaving Kurt to clean. As Kurt finishes cleaning the kitchen, he realizes Michelle never told him what to do next. So, he starts wandering the hallways to look for her. He went into a room looking for Michelle. He met a girl with a strange curse. He asked if he could touch it, and when he did, he realized she couldn't feel anything anymore. He suspected the curse was slowly consuming her whole body. Concerned, he told her he'd make some food for her, since she needed it, and went back to the kitchen. Meanwhile, Ulicia is chatting with Mimiko about some magic materials Kurt found. Even without converting them to crystals, they're worth 50,000 gold coins. Ulicia's like, this kid is either gonna be kidnapped or assassinated. Mimiko agrees. Ulicia wants to turn Kurt into an Italier master himself, so he has clout and protection, and she even plans to be his bodyguard. Problem is Kurt is too humble and oblivious to realize how insanely gifted he is. Back in the workshop, Kurt finishes cooking porridge for the cursed girl. Michelle and the real Italier master, Alia, come up from the basement and are stunned by the sparkling clean kitchen. Even more stunned when they find Kurt cooking. Alia's like, "Wait, which girl did you meet exactly?" Kurt explains and promises to keep it a secret. She pays him generously for his help and tells him to come back tomorrow. Later, Alia brings the porridge to the girl, reminding her she's supposed to stay hidden. But the girl, whose name is Lee, says Kurt seemed trustworthy, and besides, she's tired of not trusting anyone. She takes a bite, and then collapses. Alia freaks out, thinking Kurt poisoned her, and prepares to track him down, but surprise. Lee suddenly gets up and says she feels amazing. The curse is gone. Alia is completely baffled. Curses like that aren't supposed to break from a bowl of porridge. At the same time, the secret group who cursed Lee is holding an emergency meeting because someone just broke their assassination curse. Plan B, something much more deadly. Later that night, Alia and Lee head to Mimiko's place. Lee reveals her face and Mimiko immediately recognizes her as the third princess. Turns out the curse was a hit attempt, likely meant to spark a war, since Lee is the only child born from the king and a royal from a rival kingdom. Mimiko is relieved she's okay, but shocked the curse is broken. Lee tells her it wasn't her doing, it was Kurt. And the moment they hear his name, both Mimiko and Ulisha go full panic mode. Ulisha can't believe this weird, sweet porridge making Kurt broke a royal-level curse with breakfast. They plan to reward him later, but first, they need to find the snake who tampered with Lee's anti-curse defenses. Only 3 people had access to her room. Riskatz, the general. Tristan Maynol, the bishop. Isadora, the third queen. They can't just go accusing royalty, so Ophelia comes up with a sneaky plan. Lee just turned 15, which means it's time for the royal gap year, a 1-year journey to train and grow. Ophelia wants to use that as bait. They'll fake a destination and fake a mentor, and hopefully the would-be assassins will take the bait and reveal themselves. Of course, they'll need someone convincing to play the role of the Italier master. Ulisha pulls out a crystal made by Kurt, and the moment Ophelia sees it, she's like, "Yeah, this is art." Kurt's hired. Again, without knowing it. Meanwhile, back at Ophelia's house the next day, Kurt shows up for work and finds a note. "We're not home." Bummer. He runs into Michelle, who explains that Ophelia and Lee left suddenly yesterday and haven't returned. With no work and no leads, Kurt heads to the guild to grab some food. While eating, he overhears a group freaking out they lost their porter for a mission and might have to cancel it. Kurt, ever the humble tank, walks up and offers to help. He admits he's useless in a fight but great at carrying heavy stuff. Stina, one of the party members, laughs at him. "Scrawny little Kurt, please." Her brother Ken gives her a smack for being rude, but also doubts Kurt can handle the job, especially since they're hunting golems that weigh over 200 kilograms. Kurt's response? He casually lifts 2 party members at once, including Ken, who's wearing over 150 kilograms of armor. Everyone just stares like, "Okay then, welcome aboard." On the way to the mission, they introduce themselves. Ken is their heavy warrior, who prefers punching over swordplay. Danzo is a samurai. Stina is a ranger. Their 4th member is out sick, hence Kurt's cameo. Kurt is genuinely touched they gave someone like him a chance. He's used to being treated like trash in his old group, Dragonfang. But then, disaster strikes. A slime attacks Kurt. He screams like a horror movie victim. Everyone rushes to help, but it's just a slime. Stina tells him to stab the core. Kurt tries. He fails. He accidentally stabs himself. Stina sighs and finishes the slime off. She's shocked at how bad he is in a fight. But they all tell him not to worry, he's the porter, not the swordsman. Kurt is floored. They're being nice, supportive. Is this what a healthy party feels like? They reach the cave and spread glow moss for light. Kurt spots poop. Goblin poop. It's fresh, which means goblins are nearby. Kurt starts sweating. He couldn't even kill a slime. Stina says it's fine unless it's a horde. Guess what shows up? A horde. One goblin calls for backup, and now they're trapped between goblins front and back. Danzo and Ken realize they're outnumbered and probably doomed. Kurt suddenly finds a secret passage, which is great, except they can't all escape together. Danzo and Ken nod at Stina. She gets the message. She shoves Kurt into the secret room and slams the door. Kurt protests, but this was their plan. Danzo and Ken will stay behind to lure the goblins away. It's a suicide mission. But to them, dying to protect friends is the most honorable death. Stina tries to keep it together and tells Kurt they have to move. She spreads glow moss to find a way out, and realizes with horror they're not in just any room. They're in a boss room. And guess what their new roommate is? An iron dragon. Back in town, La wants to see Kurt again. Ulisha picks the lock to his room like it's Tuesday, but Kurt's not there. A mysterious voice says he went on a mission to the northeastern caves. When Ulisha runs out to check who it was, poof, they're gone. But she knows that cave is goblin territory, which means Kurt might be in serious trouble. Ulisha tells Lee to stay put. Rescuing people from monster caves isn't exactly on the royal to-do list. But Lee insists on coming along. She's been training her magic for years and isn't some helpless princess. She's ready to fight. Meanwhile, Ulisha realizes it would be super irresponsible to leave the actual princess alone, so she agrees to take Lee with her to the cave. Once inside, they notice fresh glow moss on the walls, which means someone was here very recently. La casts a sensory spell, and Ulisha thinks she's going to listen for Kurt, but nope. La drops to all fours and starts sniffing like a bloodhound. She was only around Kurt for like 10 minutes, but somehow that was enough for her to memorize his scent. A few sniffs later, bingo. She picks up Kurt's trail and also hears sounds of a battle down the hall. She buffs Ulisha's stats and points her toward the fight. Danzo and KS are hanging in there, barely, but they're clearly on the edge. Thankfully, Ulisha shows up and wipes out the goblins with one flashy swing. Back inside the secret room, Sina drops to her knees, fully defeated because, hello, they're trapped in a boss room with an iron dragon. She apologizes to Kurt for dragging him into a guaranteed death situation. But Kurt, completely unfazed. He casually walks up to the dragon, jumps on its tail, and slices it clean off with a tiny tap from his dagger. Sina watches in shock as Kurt disassembles this dragon piece by piece like he's prepping dinner. The same guy who couldn't kill a slime is now dismantling a boss monster like it's made of Play-Doh. She's actually a little scared. Just then, Ulisha bursts into the room, ready to rescue him, only to find Kurt standing in front of a pile of dragon scraps. Kurt's relieved she's there and immediately asks her to go help Danzo and KS, but she's already way ahead of him. They're safe and only a little banged up. Everyone regroups in the room to talk things over. Danzo and KS thank Ulisha for saving their butts, but she brushes it off and turns to Kurt with big news. She's opening a new atelier and wants him to join. Kurt hesitates because he's technically still with this party, but Ken encourages him to go for it. It's a huge opportunity. Even better, Ulisha needs people to guard the new atelier, so she asks Danzo, Sina, and Ken to sign up, and they're totally down. Ken's so hyped he suggests they throw a party when they get back to town. Oh, and before anything else, Ulisha reminds Kurt to go get his skills appraised because she arranged someone special to do it. A few hours later, Kurt arrives at the agency and meets Mimiko, a royal court mage who's there to check out his non-combat abilities. After the test, she tells him all his skills are B rank. Except, that was a big fat lie. In reality, all of Kurt's abilities are triple his rank, and his mana pool is insanely huge. Mimiko nearly passes out from the results. If anyone found out just how powerful he really is, it could literally cause national panic or worse, a cover-up involving eliminating witnesses. Which is awkward because Kilshell was eavesdropping the whole time. The next day, the group heads straight for the town where the new Atelier workshop is supposed to be set up. Kurt is buzzing with excitement to meet the new master, but there's a catch. Alicia never actually told him who it is. Mostly because, yeah, it's him. And she can't exactly blurt that out. So she starts winging it with some very suspicious excuses. Sina, however, is no fool. She's already figured out Alicia didn't hire them out of the kindness of her heart. As they approach the town, Kurt realizes this is the same place where he once fixed the wall, and he's still convinced the Margrave fired him for being a lousy worker. So he's not thrilled to be back. Alicia eventually leads everyone to the workshop site, which is just a patch of empty land. Cans points out, very reasonably, that you can't exactly workshop on grass. But Alicia already knows this. Her actual plan: park the group at an inn and have Kurt build the entire place from scratch. No biggie. She casually asks if he can finish by the end of the day. Kurt looks at her like, "Lady, please." 1 day is impossible, but he might be able to pull it off in 3. Alicia says, "Take all the time you need," and tells him to let her know if he needs materials. Kurt's already got a shopping list: amethyst, griffin feathers, and other not at all normal workshop supplies. Sina, very reasonably again, wonders why he needs magical beast parts for a building, but Alicia wisely decides not to question it. She promises to get them, though it'll take 2 days. While everyone heads to the inn, Alicia reminds Kurt to eat and rest. He promises to be back by nightfall. At the inn, Alicia sits the rest of the gang down for a little truth bomb. Up until now, Cans and Danzo thought Kurt was just a regular guy. But Sina saw enough crazy stuff to know something's off, and now she demands answers. Before spilling the beans, Alicia flashes her royal crest and introduces herself properly. She works for the royal family, and the quiet girl sitting across from them, that's Princess Lee, third in line for the throne. Everyone is stunned. Cans nearly stands up to bow, but Lee waves him off. She's undercover and would rather not be treated like royalty. Sina asks the next logical question, "So, is Kurt royalty too?" Alicia laughs awkwardly. "Nope, definitely not." Then she clarifies, "Okay, he's not normal either." Truth is, all of Kurt's combat skills are G rank aka the lowest, but every other skill he has is triple S rank, basically mythical. Sina, Cans, and Danzo are floored. That kind of talent is legendary. But Kurt doesn't know any of this because Alicia and Mimiko lied and told him he was just B rank. And the mysterious new Atelier master? Yep, it's Kurt. But Alicia's keeping that secret too. Sina loses it. She can't believe Alicia would lie to Kurt like this. Alicia tries to defend herself, saying Kurt probably wouldn't believe the truth anyway, which, to be fair, is a terrible excuse. She claims she's doing it to protect him, because if people find out about his skills, they'll try to use him. Sina's like, "Yeah, sounds like you're already doing that." Alicia has no comeback, just silence. Sina turns to Cans, fed up with the whole mess. Danzo tries to lighten things by asking for more details. Lee explains that Kurt once broke a deadly curse on her with porridge. Yes, porridge. And someone is trying to assassinate her, which is why they set up this fake workshop. The real plan is to lure out the enemy. Kurt, of course, knows none of this. Lee admits it's selfish, but both she and Alicia genuinely care about Kurt and don't want to see him hurt. Lee asks if they'll keep the secret and help protect him. Danzo says they don't follow royal orders, but they do protect their friends. Cans agrees. Lee's relieved. Sina, however, still thinks everyone is getting way too attached after knowing Kurt for all of 2 days. Alicia gets it. She talks like she's known Kurt forever, but she only met him last week, and she still doesn't fully understand what she's seeing. Sina decides to take a walk to clear her head and ends up wandering to the workshop site. To her absolute shock, Kurt has already finished building the entire foundation. In just a few hours. She asks if he did all this himself. He says, yeah, pretty standard stuff for a B rank, right? No, it is not. But Kurt doesn't know any better. In his village, throwing up a dozen houses in a day was normal, so he thinks he's actually working a bit slow. Sina still feels weird about Alicia using Kurt, so she asks if he's upset about being stuck with all this work. But Kurt smiles. He says he's not upset at all, he actually enjoys it. Back when he was with the hero party, they called him useless and tossed him aside. But here, people appreciate him. That's more than he ever hoped for. Meanwhile, Danzo's off in the town square to meet an informant, a very familiar-looking one with a bandana. She gives him dirt on Bibono, the porter who conveniently got sick and left their party before the mining mission. Turns out, Bibono was a spy sent by rival adventurers trying to sabotage them. With the info in hand, Danzo pays the informant and heads to a tavern that night. At a table inside, a bald, sleazy-looking guy is sulking. That's Bibono. He's upset because his plan to kill Danzo's party failed, and also because a waitress looked at him like he was garbage when he got handsy. But he's already scheming again. He found out Danzo's party is working for a workshop tied to the third princess, so he's thinking new target, new payday. Then Danzo speaks up from the shadows, enjoying your last drink. Bibono turns pale and bolts for the door. He sprints down an alley but trips over a wire. Danzo walks up slowly, sword drawn. He tells Bibono he figured out the whole sick day lie and that the stunt was a setup. Bibono tries to play dumb. Danzo doesn't buy it. He raises his sword and slashes but pulls back at the last second. He's not going to stain his blade over someone like Bibono. Instead, he gives a warning. Stay away from me and my friends. Next time, I won't be so nice. Danzo strolls off, but hiding behind a corner is Bandana, watching the whole thing go down. She's clearly not thrilled that Danzo let Bibono live because if anyone screams future problem, it's that guy. She sighs, ready to take matters into her own hands, when suddenly two hooded figures appear out of nowhere and carry Bibono off like he's a sack of trash. Bandana instantly recognizes the cloaks. These guys are from the Phantom Squad, elite operatives who only take orders from Mimiko herself. Now she's even more confused. Why would the royal court mage care about some third-rate backstabber like Bibono? Before she can do anything, her messenger Crow swoops in with a letter from her boss. The message? Back off. This is Marla's turf. Bandana's not happy about it, but orders are orders. With nothing left to do, she heads back to Kurt's hometown. Meanwhile, Marlis isn't doing great. She's trapped in a glowing magic circle. The next morning, Danzo and Can step outside and nearly pass out. The workshop's finished and fully landscaped. No one knows how Kurt did it overnight, but Lee's already fantasizing about moving in with him. Kurt gives the tour. Basement levels, magic plumbing, rooms for everyone except himself. He thought the broom closet was fine until the group forced him into the master suite. Later, Alicia asks him to set up a curse ward. He's clueless, so she uses Mimiko's seals instead. Next morning, Lee shows up in an apron. Alicia freaks out again. But Kurt's missing. Turns out he went to clean graffiti. That graffiti was the barrier magic. And now, thanks to Kurt's overzealous cleaning, Lee's totally unprotected. In the meantime, Marlefus is summoned by the bishop, only to be blindsided with excommunication. Stunned, she demands an explanation. The bishop coldly reveals that due to the Flaming Dragon Party's violent reputation and the fact that Gova is now a wanted criminal, the church wants nothing to do with her. Marlefus protests, claiming she's innocent, except for that one time she fried a waiter with lightning magic just because she didn't like the food. But the bishop, far from being a saint himself, offers her a way out. If she does a favor for him, he might forgive her sins and even promote her to priest. Excited at the chance, Marlefus is ready to do anything, only to realize too late that it's cursed. Now, unless she agrees to assassinate the kingdom's third princess, she'll die an agonizing death. Trapped, Marlefus has no choice but to comply. The bishop then traps her in a demonic magic circle to use her as a living mana battery to summon waves of skeletons to weaken the city. Meanwhile, in Kurt's mansion, life is deceptively peaceful. Lee notices the cake Kurt made tastes nostalgic. It reminds her of the rice porridge he once made. Kurt promises to cook it for her again if she ever gets cursed, though he assures her she won't need it anymore. That's because he secretly turned the entire mansion into a curse-reflecting barrier. Though he modified it to avoid killing attackers directly, he set it to blind them permanently instead. Coincidentally, the assassins trying to curse Lee attempt another spell, only to have it backfire spectacularly, cursing their own mage. Yulisha is impressed by Kurt's work, but decides to continue her own investigation without dragging him further into the mess, even though he's already neck-deep. At the same time, the city's alarm bells blare. An army of skeletons approaches. The Margrave and his son prepare for a desperate defense, only to witness the entire horde vanish upon reaching the walls thanks to Kurt's enchantments when he repaired them. However, only 2 of the 4 walls are enchanted, meaning the city is still vulnerable. While chaos brews, Yulisha presents her plan to the Margrave: lure the skeletons away while she and Allraid destroy the ruins where the monsters are being summoned. Using Kurt's magic crystals powerful enough to level buildings, they clear the way and prepare for the dangerous mission. Allraid insists on joining her, as it's his duty to protect the city. Back at the mansion, Kurt, frustrated by his limitations, forges a magic sword for Lee, though he's plagued by self-doubt about its effectiveness. Lee, touched by the gift, hides her sadness behind a smile. Kurt sees through it and gently asks if someone is after her. Lee admits the truth but feels guilty that everyone is risking their lives because of her. Kurt still has no idea she's a princess. He thinks Yulisha is out there fighting some graffiti artist in the ruins. Kurt hates feeling powerless and suggests they go catch the culprits themselves. Lee agrees, but asks how they'll escape the city, given the monster siege. Kurt smiles, saying he has his ways. Somewhere on the battlefield, Yulisha suddenly gets a chill. She knows Kurt is about to do something reckless again. Lee gets ready for battle and tests the magic sword, but nothing happens. When Kurt enters, she realizes something definitely did happen, but it's unclear what. Meanwhile, Yulisha and Allraid continue their push through the remaining zombies, with the soldiers doing their best to hold the line while the 2 head for the ruins, determined to end the invasion at its source. In the depths, Marlefus is still trapped in the magic circle, her mana being drained to keep the demon alive. She's at her limit, but the demon is only mildly annoyed by how well the humans are holding up, especially Yulisha and Allraid, who have now entered the ruins. The demon decides to confront them personally. Yulisha and Allraid find the summoning chamber and use another crystal to destroy it, but moments later, the demon appears. Yulisha attacks with a crystal, but it's useless. The demon brags it has infinite HP. Allraid attacks too, but learns the hard way that the demon is using Marlefus's mana to instantly heal. They can't win like this. The demon mocks them, promising to slaughter the knights, the city, and even Lee, leaving Yulisha and Allraid alive just to watch. The 2 attack desperately, managing to cut off its head and stab its heart, but it casually reattaches its head and keeps talking. Meanwhile, Marlefus, weak and starving, hears Kurt's voice and assumes she's hallucinating, but she's not. Kurt and Lee have arrived, having dug their way into the chamber. Marlefus, shocked, thinks Kurt brought the princess to expose her betrayal, but Kurt is just here by coincidence and is more focused on the supposed graffiti on the floor, actually the magic circle draining her. While Lee goes to find Yulisha, Kurt stays behind to clean the circle with a mop and bucket, of course. Marlefus tries to explain how absurd that is, but Kurt being Kurt, he simply wipes the circle away, breaking the spell. The demon immediately feels the loss of Marlefus's mana and starts dodging attacks rather than taking them head-on. Yulisha realizes the demon is suddenly afraid. She tries to use her last crystal, but the demon knocks it away. Just when things look grim, Lee arrives. The demon, having targeted Lee all along, stabs her only to find out it was an illusion. Lee's sword creates perfect duplicates, tricking the demon multiple times while the real Lee sneaks over to the fallen crystal. She smashes it, unleashing a massive burst of energy that finally destroys the demon. With the demon's death, the zombies vanish, ending the crisis. Everyone breathes a sigh of relief, but Ulisha scolds Lee for putting herself in danger. Lee apologizes, saying she couldn't keep hiding while others fought for her sake. Ulisha is still annoyed but admits Lee saved their lives. Allraid tries to thank her, but Lee humbly tells him he fought harder than she did and promises him a reward. Back in the chamber, Kurt finishes scrubbing away the circle, but Marlefus's curse still prevents her from eating. Kurt offers her some of his food anyway, expecting to vomit it back up. Marlefus eats it, but to her shock, the curse breaks. She finally realizes the true extent of Kurt's abilities. She reflects on how she used to look down on him, only now understanding that Flaming Dragon was strong because Kurt was there to support them. She sincerely apologizes, but that doesn't save her from being arrested by Mimiko's agents for her role in the assassination plot. As she's dragged away, she calls out to Kurt, who promises to visit her in jail. Later, everyone returns to the mansion, where Kurt hosts a feast. At first, the soldiers eat in tense silence, making Kurt worry they're forcing themselves, but Allraid explains they're speechless because the food is just that good. Kurt dreams of his childhood in Hust Village, where he once befriended a lonely girl, Hildegard, despite her father's strict rules. When she accidentally eats poisonous berries, Kurt saves her with an herbal antidote. The memory fades as Kurt awakens in a carriage with Ulisha and the others, heading to assist a drought-stricken village. Upon arrival, the villagers beg for help as their river has dried up, and the neighboring village refuses to share water. But when Ulisha confronts the other village, their chief also pleads for aid. Their reservoir mysteriously vanished. Reports of a sudden lake lead them to Kurt, who, thinking only of thirsty birds, unknowingly tapped into an underground aquifer, solving both villages' problems. Both chiefs thank Ulisha, unaware Kurt was the true hero. Back at the base, Kurt cheerfully plans meals with bird eggs, while Lee visits the influential Lord Mangrave to report the undead incident. Mangrave tries to manipulate Lee into revealing the Aitlier Meister's identity and pushes to appoint the Meister as governor of the now thriving Aitlier town, actually aiming to control Kurt. Lee's emotional outburst only confirms Kurt's value, sealing the deal. Lee returns, dropping the bombshell. Kurt is now Viceroy. The group panics, realizing Kurt doesn't even know he's the Aitlier Meister, and faking it is impossible since everyone knows him. Lee throws a tantrum, refusing to let anyone replace her beloved Kurt. Meanwhile, Kurt is blissfully unaware, busy taking care of the egg they brought back. Ulisha jokes that he's child-rearing, sending Lee into a jealous panic, thinking Kurt has a child with someone else. But Kurt proudly announces the egg has hatched and out comes a little girl, who immediately calls him Papa. Despite the absurdity of a child coming from an egg, she looks like a 3-year-old human girl. Ulisha, alarmed, insists the child is a monster and demands Kurt hand her over to be killed. But when the child calls Ulisha Mama, she melts on the spot, picturing a happy family life with Kurt. Lieselada also falls under the child's charm, and soon everyone is fighting over who gets to be called Mama. Kurt, ever the optimist, suggests they raise the child together, believing they can guide her to be good even if she's a monster. Lieselada and Ulisha argue over the child's name, each wanting their name to be part of it. Their bickering wakes the girl, who calms them by holding their hands. Realizing she brings everyone together, Kurt proposes naming her Akuri, meaning the area that connects. Everyone agrees. But despite the cheerful mood, Ulisha remains wary of the mysterious child. She quietly orders someone to keep a close watch,